Hi, I'm Melissa Weinman. I'm a professional artist, and I'm passionate about decoding the meaning in paintings. I'm particularly interested in paintings that may have the power to transform and heal us. I'd like to tell you a story about a composition that was created more than 500 years ago, one that may change the way we think about painting and may bring us to new dimensions of consciousness. 2 years ago, I began incorporating a sacred symbol, the triquetra, into the composition of my paintings, like this one titled Divina Datura, and more recently, in this painting, titled Divina Peonia. The triquetra's three interlocking points refer to the integral nature of mind, body, and spirit. The symbol is used to heal by bringing these three aspects into balance. You can see the triquetra in the implied lines created by the edges of leaves and flowers, as indicated by the transparent overlay. The implied lines direct the eye to move along in the arcing patterns of the triquetra. I wanted to instruct my students about the use of sacred geometry in composition, so naturally I used my own work as an example. But I couldn't think of a specific work of art that would provide the historical example of how sacred geometry is used in composition. I began to think about which artist would have been the most familiar with sacred geometry, and immediately I thought of Leonardo da Vinci. In examining images of his paintings, one stood out: Leonardo's image of Saint Anne, dated 1509 to 1512, which resides in the Louvre. This painting was commissioned as the high altarpiece for the Church of Santissima Annunziata in Florence, a church founded in 1250 by the members of the Servite order, or Servants of Mary. It's likely that the composition of this painting began in sketch form, and like the Burlington House cartoon, the figure of Saint Anne's daughter, Mary, sits on the saint's lap. Mary holds the Christ child. Now, as a painter, I'm always thinking about the artist's intention in a work of art, and if something is noticeable, it's for a reason. If something is unusual, even more evidence of the artist's mind at work. So I'm wondering, why is Mary sitting in her mother's lap? Even if it were to create the pyramidal composition that may have been a convention in Italian Renaissance painting, what function does the pyramid serve? What does it mean? I think it is intended to show us a sacred symbol called the tetractys. It's a mystical symbol that was important to the secret worship of the Pythagoreans and perhaps early Kabbalists, starting with a point, progressing to a line, a plane, and finally the solid. The tetractys represents the transformation of spirit into matter. The three-dimensional form of the tetractys is the tetrahedron, or a three-sided pyramid, the first Platonic solid. Here's the tetractys as I see it overlaid onto Leonardo's composition. The center appears at first glance to overlay Mary's elbow, but her elbow is directly in front of where her legs join, the womb, placed on the three-dimensional point of the tetractys where spirit becomes matter. So here it is. The figures in Leonardo's painting are painstakingly configured into a tetrahedron in order to make clear the meaning. The Spirit of God is transformed into matter through the womb of Mary. But why Saint Anne? Most images of Mary are with Jesus in her lap, the archetypal mother and child image. While studying this painting, I began to think about a few more of its odd features. For instance, why is Anne's arm bent with her hand on her hip as if showing a bit of attitude? And what is the real purpose of those ethereal blue-gray rock formations in the background? As I contemplated these forms as implied lines and suggested shapes, I began to see a new sacred geometric form emerge, the star tetrahedron, otherwise known as the Merkaba. Two intersecting tetractyses, or tetrahedrons. Flattened, it appears as a six-pointed star, the Shield of David, a symbol of the Davidic line. This is a diagram I made of the star tetrahedron in the implied lines of Leonardo's composition. Did Leonardo embed the Shield of David into the planar composition of this painting to reinforce the story of Jesus' lineage through the Davidic line of Anne and Mary? Did he embed the Merkaba into the spatial composition to instruct us further? These are images from Divina Proporzione, or Divine Proportions, written by mathematician Fra Luca Pacioli and illustrated by Leonardo da Vinci around 1498 and first printed in 1509. As Leonardo began work on Saint Anne, He and Pacioli made extensive studies of sacred geometric forms. It's evident that Leonardo knew very well the Merkaba, or star tetrahedron, as pictured in his manuscript. As I compared my two diagrams of the tetrahedron and the star tetrahedron, I began to see another sacred form emerge as one is superimposed upon the other. This form is an icosahedron, and in its three-dimensional form, it is made of 20 equilateral triangles. The icosahedron is also called Metatron's cube, a sacred geometric form that contains all 5 of the Platonic solids: the tetrahedron, the cube, the octahedron, the icosahedron, and the dodecahedron, the only 5 volumes in the world whose vertices or points match the inside of a sphere, and whose sides and angles are all equal. You can see that it also contains the star tetrahedron, and that Leonardo drew one in his notebook. When I superimposed Metatron's cube on the top of my star tetrahedron, I was astonished to discover that Metatron's cube lined up with so many elements in Leonardo's composition. And what's more, it lined up with those ethereal blue-gray rock formations in the background. I'm curious about the 6 points that create the Shield of David in Metatron's cube. The top and bottom points align with the top of Anne's head and the tip of her toes. Another rests on the lamb's tail, all things in the foreground of this painting. But the left points appear to rest outside the picture plane, and the upper right point rests on the tree. Why does the shape and configuration of the tree match the tree of life pattern, also known as the spherot? And what, if anything, lies on the left 2 points? Only the curators at the Louvre could tell us if this painting may have been cropped or altered in any way. So the question remains, why might Leonardo have embedded Metatron's cube into the composition of this painting? Let's review. This painting was commissioned as an altarpiece, an object for worship, meditation, and contemplation. Metatron's cube, containing all 5 Platonic solids, are thought to be the building blocks of the universe, in other words, God's building blocks. In contemplating these forms, it's believed that one reaches into other dimensions of consciousness, perhaps the creative mind of God. Was Leonardo da Vinci revealing God's creative mind in transforming his spirit into matter, into the body of Jesus through Anne and Mary? And at the same time, creating an object of contemplation that by simply tracing the implied lines with our eyes would bring us to a new dimension of consciousness, one that is closer to God? I'd like to think so. It's a mystery for each of us to discover for ourselves. Thank you for watching, and if you have a comment or question, please contact me on the web at melissaweinman.com.